Hello, welcome and thank you so much for joining us on the Get to Know Your ERB series. This is a series where we're going to be having conversations that are centered around the ERB and also their mandate in the energy sector. My name is Chimoveduru and I am your host for this particular episode. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about licensing. To help us break it down further, joined by Nis Filaza, who is the Director Licensing right here at ERB. Madam, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Get to Know ERB.
Thank you for having me, Chimoemwe.
Thank you. Let's to find out, what is the process of obtaining an energy license in Zambia and what criteria must the applicants adhere to?
Okay, so in responding to that question, the first thing that I'll say is that the Energy Regulation Board draws its mandate to issue licenses from the Energy Regulation Act. So the process that is undertaken when issuing out a license is mainly, I'll break it down in 5 main steps. So the first step is that the licensee will lodge in the documents, which are the ones that they need to obtain the license. So once they lodge in the necessary documents, and I must say that for the we issue different types of licenses. So with each type of licenses, there are different documents that should be accompanied with the type of license that one is applying for. And these documents, one of the main documents an applicant also has to submit is a checklist. So we will have to go through the documents that have been submitted. So the first stage is that they'll lodge in the documents. They will go through the documents to just make sure that they have submitted the required document for the particular license. So that's step 1. Then step 2, if all the documents are in order, is that we will issue an invoice to the applicant, which will show how much an applicant is supposed to pay for the particular application that the type of license that they've applied for. So this is usually an assessment fee invoice. Once that is paid by the applicant, it's issued and paid by the applicant. The third stage is that we will process the application. So during the processing stage of the application, we conduct 2 tests, which is mainly a financial assessment test, and we also conduct a technical assessment test. So in this test, there are certain things that we look for. In technical issues, we are looking at whether this applicant meets the standards for the particular license they're applying for. And in the financial assessment, we're looking at whether the applicant has the financial muscle to undertake this activity or license that they've applied for. Then the 4th step is that the applicant will, the application, once we've seen that they've met the minimum requirements at the processing stage, it will go to the board, who will make a determination based on the financial and technical assessment. And if the determination is to reject, then a rejection will be issued, which is the 5th stage. And if they've met the minimum requirements, then we'll issue them with a license. So basically, I would say there are 5 main steps that we look at.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation. So from everything else that you have explained, Ms. Fulaza, how does the department ensure that licensees comply with regulatory standards and also obligations?
Okay, so mainly this question, I'll break it down in three parts. The first part is on regulatory requirements. I'll look at it at the pre-application or pre-license issuance stage, or pre-construction permit issuance, and the post. So during the pre-application stage, for example, there are certain standards. I mentioned earlier that an applicant would have to meet certain technical requirements. So during that technical assessment, there are certain standards and requirements that an applicant would have to meet at that stage. I'll give you, for example, a company that's setting up a service station. There are certain standards that they would have to meet before we can issue them a license to retail petroleum products. So at that stage, we also ensure that licensees or applicants meet regulatory requirements. Then there's also the post-license stage. After we've issued you with a license, we usually issue with each license, there are conditions that come with a license. So that is at that stage when we issue the conditions, we ensure to say there are certain standards which you still have to adhere to post being issued with a license. So at that stage, you also have to ensure that during the duration of your license, you are in constant compliance with regulatory requirements. So one way in this is done is that licensees are required to do self audits, which they're supposed to submit to the ERB. And during these self audits, there are certain standards that they have to ensure that they're always complying to. And then we can also do inspections where we just check to make sure that licensees are meeting requirements. This is post license issuance. Then in terms of obligations, I mentioned that the license comes with conditions. So these license conditions have certain obligations that a licensee is supposed to meet. So some of the obligations includes paying of license fees. So we also ensure that if you come post for a renewal, or you want subsequent inclusions to your license, before we can issue with those, we need to ensure that you are also meeting obligations. And if you are not meeting obligations, then that can also have an effect on issuing you with your subsequent license or your renewals.
Amazing. So what licensing opportunities exist in rural market entrance in emerging sectors such as solar and LPG?
Thank you very much for that question. This energy crisis has just shown us that there is a lot of emerging opportunities for especially those who want to take an opportunity to take part in the solar and LPG. I must say that this particular license was one that we had issued very few licenses on, but we've noticed that with the crisis, there's been a growing need to have more players on the market, and we have increased the number of licensees on that portfolio. So the energy crisis has provided an opportunity for licensees or for applicants and members of the general public to come and obtain licenses in solar and LPG, because now you are able to come into the sector and take opportunities. So on the ERB side, some of the things that we have done is that we have just we're expediting, especially the process of issuance of a solar license. We are taking cognizant of the fact that there's a crisis. So for solar licenses, we're ensuring that these are being issued within 48 hours. And this is just to make sure that we have as many players on the market, because when we have many players, then this also enhances competition on the market.
So as a regulator, how does the licensing process promote competition among energy providers in Zambia?
So one way we ensure that we promote competition is that we subject all applicants who come to apply for different license to the same requirements and the same standards. So we do not subject them to different requirements, because if you subject them to different requirements, then that also would have an effect in terms of how they operate on the market. So we make sure that we subject them to the same requirements, the same standards. If you want to set up a service station, all the licensees who come for this are subjected to the same standards, so that we ensure that there is fair competition. And then also, if we note that there are certain licensees that are engaging in any form of unfair trade practices, then we will also, we can carry out inspections, or we can engage the licensees to inform them that you're engaging in these unfair practices, and we would take them to task to make sure that we maintain a level playing field. But if we notice that there are still other anti-competitive tendencies that our licensees are engaging into, we will engage the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, which is the regulator which has been vested to look at all matters related to competition. So we will engage and work with them to ensure that we have no unfair competition on the market.
Amazing. Let's move on to technology and the digital space. It is very, very important for companies and also organizations to also have the technology and the digital space that we're currently in when it comes to the provision of services to our clients. So when it comes to technology and also the digital space, what initiatives are underway to modernize and streamline the licensing process for efficiency and also transparency from you as the regulator?
Okay, thank you for that. So on our end, we do have an online application system, but we do realize that we need to enhance it. It still has a little bit of issues that we would need to enhance. So in the year 2025, one of our key deliverables is to ensure that we enhance the online licensing process so that we ensure that it is up to date, and we don't, licensees or would-be applicants would be able to make applications from the comfort of their homes or their offices, and they would not always have to walk in physically. So one of our key deliverables in 2025 is to ensure that we enhance the licensing process so that we have more applications coming in online.
Amazing. So how does the department work with stakeholders to support innovation and investment within the energy market?
So one way in which we work with licensees or even would-be licensees to enhance the market is we do note that the market is constantly evolving, and there are all sorts of technologies that are coming onto the market. So usually when we have licensees or members of the general public who have a new way, an innovative way of undertaking a certain procedure, we usually will engage them and hear them. And we have, for a few current licenses that we issue, we're actually born out of a pilot project. So if we note that this is something that's innovative and we can take it and it will drive the economy and improve efficiency, we will take it on as a pilot, and then we will see how it will work for probably a year or so. And then after that, we will ensure that that will now become the way of carrying out a business. So we do encourage licensees and would-be to come through with different technologies and different innovations, and we will see how best we can work with them to ensure that we enhance those ideas that they have.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on this particular interview with location. Any last message that you have to the people out there? Also, you might as well just encourage people that are eyeing an opportunity in the energy sector, just encourage them on how easy it is to acquire a license in the energy sector.
Okay, so for the would-be members of the public who would want to get a license, I would just like to inform them that the process is not complicated as it sounds. It's a very easy and seamless process. So if you have any questions, you can always come through to the Energy Regulation Board and see the licensing department. We are on hand to help you throughout the process. Then to our licensees out there, I would just like to tell them to always ensure that they comply with the conditions that have been put in their license. And to the general public, these are our consumers out there, I'd just like to inform them that as the Energy Regulation Board, we are here to safeguard your interests. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us once again, and we're wishing you all the very best as ARB.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, thank you so much for staying tuned to this particular episode. Our topic of discussion today was centered around licensing at the Energy Regulation Board. My name is Chumomelu, and do not forget to continuously get interactive with us on all our social media platforms. That is Financial Insights on all social media platforms. Thank you so much once again, and see you on the next episode. Thank you.